Hello Year 11, welcome to week 14 of our revision. This week we are looking at how to protect a network from different security threats. Protecting a network. Okay, before you start, can you make sure you have revision sheet 10 in front of you from your revision pack? This sheet should already be partly filled in from the previous session when we looked at the types of malware and different forms of threats. We are filling in this section on the right hand side of the sheet. Okay, so just to remind you, we looked last session at the different threats such as malware, which is things like viruses and trojans and worms. We looked at different types of things like brute force attack, denial of service, interception, social engineering and SQL injection attacks. So the question today is, how can you protect a network against these different security threats? What different things can you do? Well, there are lots of different ways you can protect. Different techniques that you need to know about are things such as encryption, firewalls, using anti-malware software, penetration testing, passwords, user access security levels, and physical security. These are all things that you could reference and suggest in an exam. Okay, let's have a quick look at some of these. You're going to make some notes and then we'll do the quiz. Penetration testing. This is basically where organizations employ specialists, sometimes they could be ex-hackers or other people or experts, to simulate potential attacks on the network. They are basically trying to get into a network to find any security weaknesses. And when they find these weaknesses, they then report them back to the company so they can be fixed, and that prevents real attacks from real hackers, for example. So they gather information, they find possible ways into the network, and then they report back the findings so they can be improved. This is best to protect against things like active attacks or malware, where a network could be attacked by real hackers, for example. Okay, another real basic thing which you should have on your computer at home, for example, and we have on the school network, anti-malware software. Well, it literally is like it says. It's anti-malware. It's software to help prevent, find and stop malware from damaging a computer or a network. There are lots of different types of anti-malware software you could download. Some are specialized and some are just generalized. But generally, they work by keeping a list of all the different virus patterns that are created and released, all the different viruses that are found on the internet, and it scans your file to look for different patterns of viruses. And if it finds a virus pattern on your computer, it will then quarantine the file or section it off, or give the option to delete it and remove it completely. And you have to have updates to your anti-malware to detect new malware, new viruses that have been released. And this is best to protect against active attacks, which is hackers using malware, or just malware in general, things like viruses that may infect your computer. Anti-malware software. Firewalls. Again, this is a standard thing which pretty much every computer should have. A firewall is a piece of software, it is software designed to block unauthorized access to a computer or network. It basically examines all the data going in or out of a network or a computer. So it monitors all the connections going in and out, and it will block anything it doesn't trust or doesn't understand. That includes things like hackers or programs that might be trying to get into your computer. And it has rules to decide what things are allowed to go in and what things it blocks. It's best to protect against things like active attacks or denial of service attacks, where hackers flood the network with data to try and crash it. Active and denial of service. Okay, user access levels. This is just like we have at Coon Dean. You remember our student access, you have access to some things on the network, but teachers, for example, have access to more things on the network, and then the technicians have higher access again. So user access levels help to control what parts of a network different groups of users can access. It helps to limit the number of people with access to important data and helps to prevent insider attacks. So even a person, a student for example, on the network could not access things they should not be able to. So it controls what things in the network people can access and use. And it's best to protect against insider attacks, people within an organization that have access to a network, for example. Password protection, again, a very common feature, helps to prevent unauthorized access to a computer or network by making a person enter a password and they cannot access a computer without it. Features of good password are making sure you've got a good length, a good combination of things like letters, numbers and symbols, and making sure it's changed regularly. And again, this helps to prevent against insider attacks or brute force attacks where hackers try to guess the password, having a strong password. Encryption. This is where all the data is encoded or changed or scrambled, so it can only be read by someone with the correct key to unlock it. So the data is scrambled and it can only be seen or understood by someone with the correct key. Now that does not stop someone in the middle from seeing the data, but they will not understand it because it's being encoded. So you have a message here, hello, it's encoded with a key. Anyone in between can see the data, but they will not understand what it means. Only the person on the other end with the key can then decrypt the data and see the original message. And this is best to protect against passive attacks, where hackers or third parties monitor the data on a network. Encryption. And finally, physical security. There is also a threat of people breaking in or accessing the data physically in person. So physical security helps to restrict physical access to parts of a network. How can you do that? Well, you could have locked rooms using keys or key cards or keypads to access the room. You could have biometric access, such as the fingerprint scanner we use for payments in school for your lunches and things, or face recognition, anything that uses biological things like fingerprints and eye scanners. Or you could use things like CCTV to monitor people accessing an area. It doesn't prevent people, but it monitors them and helps to deter people from doing it. This helps to protect against physical theft, people physically accessing or stealing data or devices on the network. Physical security. Okay, on your sheet now, you haven't got much space, but on the right hand side, I'd like you to write just a single sentence for what is the purpose and what threat or threats can it help to prevent the best. Go back, look through the video if you need to, and then check your answer on the following section. Okay, Purple Pen, checking your answers, add to your answers now, please. So we've got penetration testing, where organizations employ specialists to simulate or to carry out potential attacks, find security weaknesses and fix them. And that is best to prevent against active attacks with malware. Anti-malware software designed to find and stop malware from damaging a computer network, and that is best against active attacks or malware itself. Firewall is software designed to block unauthorized access. It examines all the data entering and leaving a network. That is best to prevent against DOS or active attacks. User access levels controls what part of the network different groups of users can access. That is insider attacks it prevents. Passwords to prevent unauthorized access to a computer system or network. That prevents against insider or brute force. Encryption, encrypting the data so it can only be read with someone with the correct key. Passive attacks, that helps to prevent. And physical security, restricting access to a computer system or network by physically preventing access using things like fingerprint scanners, keypads, CCTV, which stops them physically stealing the device or data. Checking your answers and adding now. And your final task today, as always, on LearnComDean, revision quiz 14. Check each answer, and if you've got it right, move on. Otherwise, please try again and correct the question. Do this for me now, and make sure it's ready for next lesson. Good luck.